Welcome to Divine Awakening. Today, we will take you on a spiritual journey through the life of Gautama Buddha, the founder of Buddhism and one of the world's greatest spiritual masters. His teachings of peace, compassion, and mindfulness have inspired millions across the world. I am Pranab Kishore Prehraj, CEO and founder of Pranab Digital Gurukul. Let's explore how Prince Siddhartha became the enlightened Gautam Buddha. Birth and early life of Prince Siddhartha. Prince Siddhartha, later known as Gautama Buddha, was born in 563 BC to the royal family of the Shakya clan in the lush gardens of Lumbini, present-day Nepal. His father, King Suddhodana, was the ruler of Kapilvastu, and his mother, Queen Mahamaya, was known for her grace and piety. According to legend, before Siddhartha was born, Queen Mahamaya had a divine dream in which she saw a white elephant with 6 tusks in her womb. Court astrologers interpreted this dream as a sign that the child would either become a great king, Chakravarti, who would unite nations, or a spiritual leader, Buddha, who would lead humanity to enlightenment. On the day of his birth, Queen Mahamaya was on her way to her ancestral home in Devdah but stopped to rest in the beautiful Lumbini gardens, where she gave birth to Siddhartha while standing under a sal tree. It is said that as soon as Siddhartha was born, he took 7 steps in 4 directions and a lotus bloomed at every step, indicating that he was destined for greatness. Soon after his birth, a wise sage named Asita visited the palace and prophesied that the child would either become a powerful ruler or a great spiritual teacher. Unfortunately, Queen Mahamaya died only 7 days after giving birth, and Siddhartha was lovingly raised by his aunt Mahaprajapati Gautami, who took the responsibility of his upbringing and care. Despite being raised in a life of privilege and luxury, Siddhartha was a thoughtful and kind child. He showed a keen intelligence, curiosity and sensitivity from an early age. His father, King Shuddhodhan, wished to make him a great king and protected him from the realities of human suffering, ensuring that Siddhartha lived a life of comfort and pleasure within the palace walls. Siddhartha received the finest education, excelling in archery, horsemanship and philosophy. He mastered the Vedic scriptures and was trained in the arts of statecraft, diplomacy and governance. Even though he was surrounded by wealth and luxury, Siddhartha often felt a strange sense of restlessness. His compassionate nature and deep contemplation about the purpose of life signaled a spiritual calling that would eventually lead him away from the luxuries of the palace to a journey of profound self-discovery. Siddhartha's early life was characterized by the paradox of living in splendor while feeling profound isolation from the world beyond the palace gates. This sheltered life laid the foundation for the transformational journey that later awakened him to the realities of suffering, impermanence and the ultimate truth of existence. Siddhartha's marriage and life in the palace. As Prince Siddhartha Gautama grew up, his father King Shuddhodhan was determined to keep him attached to worldly pleasures and prevent him from knowing the harsh realities of life. To further connect him to the royal life, at the age of 16, Siddhartha was married to Princess Yasodhara, the beautiful and charming daughter of King Suppabuddha and Queen Pamita of the Koliya dynasty. Yasodhara was not only admired for her beauty but was also known for her intelligence and devotion, making her the perfect match for the prince. Their marriage was filled with affection and harmony, and soon, they had a son named Rahul, whose name symbolized bondage or fetters, signifying the ties that bound Siddhartha to his worldly life. Despite being surrounded by comfort and luxury in 3 magnificent palaces that were specially built for different seasons, one for summer, one for winter, and one for the rainy season, Siddhartha had a growing sense of discontent in his heart. His life was filled with entertainment, fine food, music, and extravagant pleasures, all carefully arranged by King Suddhodana so that Siddhartha would not be distracted from the realities of suffering. The prince was shielded from the sight of old age, illness, and death, and every effort was made to maintain the illusion of being happy forever. However, despite living in unrivaled comfort, Siddhartha's mind often wandered, and his heart was troubled by an unshakable sense of emptiness and longing. Siddhartha loved his wife and son very much, but he could not ignore the growing awareness that life is fleeting and material pleasures are ephemeral. Though he had everything a prince could desire, his compassionate nature led him to contemplate the deeper meaning of existence. Siddhartha's sheltered life, though luxurious, failed to satisfy his spiritual longing and fueled a silent search for truth that eventually led him beyond the confines of the palace in pursuit of knowledge. His marriage and his life in the palace, full of worldly pleasures, became the backdrop against which his inner calling for higher purpose grew stronger over time. The 4 sights that changed his life. One day, Siddhartha stepped out of the palace and saw 4 sights that changed his life forever. The first sight, an old man, a glimpse of old age. Prince Siddhartha Gautama, during one of his walks beyond the palace walls, saw a sight that deeply disturbed him, an old man, bent with age, walking slowly and painfully along the road. The man's wrinkled skin, trembling limbs and feeble movements reflected the harsh reality of aging. Siddhartha had never seen such a sight before, for his father, King Suddhodana, had carefully shielded him from the harsh realities of life. When Siddhartha saw the old man, he turned to his charioteer, Channa, and asked, "What has happened to this man?" Channa explained that it was simply the result of aging, which happens to all human beings as time passes. Siddhartha was shocked to learn that aging was an inevitable fate for everyone, regardless of wealth, status or power. This encounter sowed the first seeds of disillusionment in Siddhartha's mind, as he realized that youth and vitality are temporary and that no one can escape the inevitable effects of old age. Seeing the old man made Siddhartha question the purpose of life and ponder over the mortality of human existence. For the first time, he began to understand that worldly pleasures and comforts cannot protect one from the realities of life. This realization would lead him further on the path of finding answers to the deeper meaning of life and suffering. The second sight, a sick man, the harsh reality of suffering. On another trip beyond the palace walls, Prince Siddhartha came across a sight that disturbed him even more, a sick man, writhing in pain and visibly feeble. The man was struggling, his face distorted with agony as he endured the suffering caused by illness. Siddhartha, who was protected from any kind of suffering within the confines of the palace, had never witnessed such helplessness before. Shocked at this sight, Siddhartha turned to his charioteer, Channa, and asked, "What has happened to this man?" Channa explained that the man was sick, a condition that could happen to anyone, regardless of his status, age, or wealth. Siddhartha was shocked by the revelation that illness is an inevitable part of life. He realized that no matter how many luxuries and comforts he had, no one was free from illness and suffering. This encounter deeply disturbed Siddhartha. Seeing the sick man awakened a sense of compassion in him, but it also forced him to question the fragility of life. He began to understand that good health is temporary and that pain and suffering can happen to anyone at any time. This second vision furthered his growing disillusionment with the material world and intensified his quest to find answers about the true nature of life. The third sight, a dead body, are the inevitability of death. On his third trip out of the palace, Prince Siddhartha Gautam encountered the most distressing sight of all, a dead body being carried to the cremation grounds by grieving family members. The lifeless body, devoid of breath and movement, was a harsh reminder of the finality of life. Siddhartha had never seen death before and was deeply shaken by the sight of the grieving family. Disturbed and confused, Siddhartha asked his charioteer, Channa, "What has happened to this man?" Channa explained that the man was dead and that death was the inevitable end of all living beings. For the first time, Siddhartha realized that no one could escape death, no matter his power, wealth, or status. This revelation shattered his perception of life as he came to understand that all living beings must eventually face death. Seeing the dead body made Siddhartha face the impermanence of life. He realized that old age, illness and death were inevitable and no worldly pleasures could save one from these inescapable realities. This profound encounter sowed deep seeds of questioning in Siddhartha's mind, as he began to wonder if there was a way to escape the endless cycle of birth, suffering and death. This experience furthered his spiritual quest to find a path that would lead to lasting peace and liberation. The fourth sight, a peaceful monk, a path to liberation. He saw a peaceful monk who had renounced worldly life. On his fourth journey beyond the palace walls, Prince Siddhartha Gautama saw a sight that filled him with hope and curiosity, a peaceful sadhu, ascetic, walking peacefully down the street. The monk had renounced worldly life in search of spiritual truth, renouncing all material possessions and desires. His calm demeanor and serene expression exuded inner peace and contentment, a stark contrast to the suffering Siddhartha had seen before. On seeing this serene figure, Siddharth asked his charioteer, Channa, who is this man, and why does he look so peaceful? Channa explained that the monk was an ascetic who had renounced worldly pleasures to seek liberation from suffering and the ultimate truth of existence. This final sight left a lasting impression on Siddharth. He realized that true happiness and liberation could not be found in the luxuries of palace life but in renouncing desires and following the spiritual path. The sight of the monk inspired Siddharth to seek answers beyond the material world and find a way to overcome the suffering he had witnessed so far. The presence of the calm monk convinced Siddharth that there was a way to escape the cycle of birth, suffering, and death. This encounter strengthened his resolve to leave his princely life behind and set out on a journey of self-discovery, which eventually led him to enlightenment as Gautam Buddha.